Excellent connection, going live, testing, you are live. Little reset on the day, and welcome to the party, ladies and gentlemen. It is Imola Grand Prix Day, live out of Italy, and what a day it is for it. It's sunny, the sunshine is beautiful. Damn, I get called late in the chat already? Shocking stuff. I was like, how many seconds late? 20 seconds late? Maybe 20 seconds late? What's good, everyone? Good morning, good afternoon. It's actually good afternoon here. If you're joining us from the US, good afternoon. Good morning, actually. If you're joining us from the rest of Europe, good afternoon. If you're joining us from Australia, then it's probably about midnight. So you're probably not doing that. I do appreciate that this part of the season is very friendly for us Europeans. The European leg, Imola, Monaco, Spain, Silverstone, Austria, Hungary, all the Grand Prix happen at a good time. We've got Spa, we've got other races. But yes, welcome everyone. The race is on in about an hour's time. A very important race, I think, for the championship based on qualifying yesterday. Max Verstappen much happier with his car, although Yuki Tsunoda probably wouldn't say the same. Lando, same old story. Obviously, we're going to talk about this 1,000-yard stare from Lewis Hamilton on the left-hand side, because at the end of the day, we are, 7 races into Hamilton's Ferrari career, and already we have the classic stare from the Ferrari drivers. We've seen it from Alonso, we've seen it from Vettel, and it's already happening again. The title is more talking about what's going to happen at turn 1. Like, I had to do a little bit of clickbait. So we're going to talk about that. Like, there's not been any drama at turn 1. But my question is there going to be drama at turn 1? Because if you look at the front of the grid and you look at, let's say, history of Max Verstappen at turn 1 in Imola, then obviously it's a talking point, right? But yes, welcome everyone. Welcome James with your anger responsibility. 9:30 p.m. in South Australia. Okay, actually not too bad. I know that the time zones in the summer are different because when daylight savings happen, the Australian time zone gets really far away or pretty close. Rumours of Hamilton replacing Sainz next season at Williams. God, I mean, I actually do have a little stat for you guys on that real quick. I might as well just bring it up. So we have a stat right about here. 3, 2, 1. There it is. Carlos Sainz has outqualified his Ferrari replacement Lewis Hamilton over the last 4 Grand Prix. If I'm right in saying, has Hamilton outplaced Sainz in all of those Grand Prix? Not like it really. The point still stands, right? The point still stands. But this is a big deal. It's kind of wild that Sainz left Ferrari and somehow got a better car, despite not going to Mercedes. So pretty brutal. I don't even know. How do Ferrari do this, man? How do they do it? How do they keep doing it? It's a very good question. But this is what they do. This is the Ferrari way. And yeah, I don't know who's to blame for this exactly, right? I mean, we've got to talk about that. It's obviously a discussion. Who is at fault for Ferrari's absolute disaster class so far this season? People are obviously going to point the fingers at Fred Vasseur. People are going to point the fingers maybe at Enrico Cardile. I don't know. I mean, Fred Vasseur the other day said that Loic Serra, of course, former Mercedes man who worked a long time with Hamilton, he joined the team last year, but by the time he joins, they'd made 90% of the car already. I don't know. It's interesting. Like, we heard some interesting comments out of Ferrari over the last couple of years. They talked a lot about their suspension and how, well, suspension maybe doesn't really matter so much and it's more about this. Look, at the end of the day, if Adrian Newey says that suspension is the most important thing on these cars, then I'm going to believe him, even if Ferrari's engineers say differently. And look, it worked out for them last year. The SF24 was a competent car. It was not great in qualifying, but it was good in the race. The year before that, the SF23 was great in qualifying, was not so good in the race. And this year's car is terrible in both. So, congratulations, Ferrari. You've played yourself. It could be a very important moment when you're talking about the context of Ferrari. Is it going to change anything? Probably not. My point is that this is Imola, Ferrari home turf through and through, and to deliver a disaster class like yesterday is a nightmare. Wow, thank you, Jay, for funsies, for the $20 super chat. Been following for years, watching every video. Thanks for the hard work. I appreciate that so much. You are the man. Look at, let's get a little, how do I like it? There we go. You guys can see it on the stream. Maybe not quite. Put it on the big screen. Honestly, thank you so much. I try my best. Every video would be impressive, though. I'm not gonna lie. Every video would be impressive. Sometimes people will say, "Oh, I've watched you since 20 or whatever the year is," and I'm like, "If you honestly have, fair play," because I find it immense. No, honestly, thanks so much. I try my best. Lando will recover. Give him time and less pressure. You know what? The Lando question is really interesting. I do want to quickly, I want to talk about Ferrari a bit more. But we're going to talk all the stories. We discussed it in yesterday's video. But yeah, the Lando story is really interesting to me. We've got an hour until the Grand Prix gets underway pretty much. And could you see Charles leaving Ferrari to try his chances elsewhere? I think Charles has to think about it. I don't think he'll ever do it. Certainly not in the near future. Charles will be at Ferrari for at least 3 more years. If by 2028 it's still the same old, I think the thing that I find frustrating is that you get a guy like Fred Vasseur, who I think seems like a very reasonable character. He's impressed me at what he's done previously. And then he turns up to Ferrari and starts just talking like Ferrari talk. I mean, people are joking about it, this word potential, right? And he did it again yesterday. Fred Vasseur says that they didn't execute, and execution is 50% of the potential. The car still has the potential. It's like, oh my God, you can't be serious. Can we not just admit that we've messed up? And this is just the thing with Ferrari. Everything's always got to be spectacular all the time. And if it's you could be dead last in the championship, and it's like, well, but next week is going to be different. I mean, the amount of times that Ferrari have tweeted out so far this season, I mean, I'll probably have to find a couple of examples there because it is just too funny. I'll go to the official Scuderia Ferrari Twitter page and we'll have a look at some of them. You know what? This is actually going to be a good idea. From Scuderia Ferrari, not our day. Let's see what this comes up with, if anything. So here we go. This is, I don't actually have no idea what you're going to see when I scroll down here, but I thought it would be funny to look at live. So anyway, yesterday they tweeted this out. Not our day, full focus on the race tomorrow. And obviously it's P11, P12. And they last tweeted this out in Miami. So, the most recent Grand Prix. They say not our day in Miami. Okay, to be fair, before that, we're back into 2024 here. But, I mean, how many have we got? So this is actually Montreal last year. And this is quite an important one, right? Because this is the Grand Prix where the last time they both went out in Q2. And last Grand Prix they went out in Q2 was Montreal last year. And they both didn't finish the race. So what have Ferrari got in store for us today? P11, P12 in quali? Who knows? Maybe a double DNF, maybe a double DSQ, maybe maybe a DNS like Charles Leclerc in the sprint in Miami. But I mean, is it ever their day? Is it ever their day? I thought maybe this year might be the year. But look, let's be real. The momentum was pointing towards this year potentially being their year. But look, it's Ferrari, right? I think it's just frustrating, this whole Fred Vasseur thing to me, because it just kind of proves that Ferrari are corrupted on some level. Like from the very top level to the very granular, what happens on the track. We always talk about the politics at Ferrari, the way the team is designed, the culture in the team being an issue in terms of putting everything on the line to win. Look, for example, Adrian Newey wanted to go to Ferrari, probably. We think he did. He went to Bologna. He looked at some houses, we think. And Fred Vasseur said, and I get it, right? I do get it. But Fred Vasseur said Newey wanted a lot of control because he recognises that Ferrari is a pretty broken structure. Newey wants a lot of control. Vasseur wasn't willing to give him the veto right on technical decisions. And therefore, the decision didn't move forward. And I do get it, but also that's just a very Ferrari thing to happen, right? It's very Ferrari to say, look, Newey, I know you've won all these races with all these cars and these championships that you've, built, but we actually prefer these fellas. Look, and it's not like they haven't recruited. They bring on Jerome D'Ambrosio. They've brought on, Sarah. maybe there's still a future, right? But yeah, it's just tough. So yeah, 2024, and I'm just scrolling back here. Okay, they've only recently brought in the Not Our Day propaganda, but we've got Not Our Day 2 weekends in a row here. So, this is just Ferrari things. And I think what annoys me as well is that you get this kind of disconnect between the drivers and Fred Vasseur, because you've got, yeah, exactly, as Shellam says, the technical team was restructured at Ferrari in summer 2024, which is true. And, Cardielli went to Aston Martin, they restructured the technical team. At that point, they built a lot of the car. I mean, maybe you could argue that they knew that the car was going to be problematic because they restructured the technical team in the way that they did. And yes, we'll do predictions for today's race. Don't worry about that. Gasly's comment about the smart guy in the Aston, big buzz. Who actually was the smart guy? I couldn't tell whether it was Stroll or Alonso. So I'm sure you guys will know who actually was the smart guy, because I couldn't figure it out in real time, but I couldn't find anyone that knew. Anyway, but you've got Charles Leclerc saying that the car just doesn't have the performance, right? Which is true. The car doesn't have the performance. But then you've got Fred Vasseur saying, no, the potential is there in the car. It's like, okay, fantastic. Brilliant job, everyone. We've got nearly 700 people live in here getting ready for the Grand Prix, roasting Ferrari. We're going to talk Aston. We're going to talk McLaren. We're going to talk about what's going to happen at Turn 1 for sure. But appreciate all of you. If you're new here, hit a like on the stream. I'd appreciate it. It's free. Helps push it out to new people. Anyway, that's what Charles Leclerc had to say. I think it was Fernando. Hard to see. Yeah, I thought it was Fernando. Just like my gut feel was it was Fernando. But I might be wrong on that. I did find this tweet kind of tickled me a little bit from De Keyser. Of course, he's the journalist on the kind of Ferrari side on the Italian press, and he just says disastro. So I don't think we really need Google Translate to figure out what's going on here. So that sums everything up pretty well. Ferrari needs to pay Max wads of cash to go there and do a Schumacher. I mean, the thing is, that's kind of the point of signing Hamilton. Was like they literally said this, that Hamilton knows how to have a winning team. He's going to come in. And Hamilton even said that in an interview yesterday, that he was like, look, we've got a lot of work to do on the structures behind the scenes, and that's what this year's all about. Look, would Max be more like cutthroat and brutal? Obviously, he's at a different stage in his career. Sure. But does Max want to do that? I don't know. I mean, Max likes driving a Ferrari, but, Max likes driving the Ferrari GT3 cars around the Nordschleife. So, that's the type of Ferraris that he's interested in, to be honest, at the moment. GameRight says, did Aston bring a lot of upgrades or the car just works? I think it's a bit of both. They definitely brought quite substantial upgrades this weekend. And honestly, I was confused that they were the only team, really, to try the mediums. Because we were talking about it yesterday on the pre-show. And you guys were, what did we say, 70% in the poll? I asked a question, in the poll. What are the chances that a team pulls out a medium in Q3? And you guys mostly agreed that somebody would. And they did. But the C5 is just clearly the better tyre. Maybe except for the McLarens. Maybe except for the McLarens. Because they can keep their tyres alive so well, maybe it's better. But I think that was a really big deal. I mean, both times they tried on a new medium in their final run, they went half a second quicker. So, and George would have had pole. I mean, I'll bring up the numbers while I'm remembering it now, because I might as well just show you guys now. This is the, here you go. Yeah, so this is the telemetry for George Russell's lap. Now, he ended up being 137, was it, off the pace? So, okay, I kind of have the numbers here. Yeah, plus 0.137. So just over a tenth off. But George lost all of that time in the final couple of corners. So here he is coming through. This is the onboard. He's coming through the final couple of corners. He doesn't get a good run at all out of the final corner. I mean, look at this. Look how compromised this lap is. He has to let through Sainz or whatever it was in the final corner. So his final corner was super compromised. By the time he gets to the line, he's way slower than he would be. And yeah, this cost him 0.17 basically, right? Down the straight and through the first couple of corners, he lost almost 2 tenths. From then to the rest of the lap, Russell was the fastest man on track, faster than Piastri, faster than Max. So if it wasn't for that, just unfortunate start to the lap, the timing, maybe Mercedes got it slightly wrong, I don't know. Then Russell would have had pole, and I would have loved a Russell pole on the mediums because it would have like fed families for my Pirelli hate watch. You guys know how it goes. I was talking a lot about Pirelli yesterday. KN says, when does the Pirelli contract end? It was meant to end after this year, but they extended it for another like 5 or 6 years, something like that. So yeah, this would have been absolutely world class for my Pirelli hate watch because, I mean, how would they have justified that? A guy getting pole on mediums, clearly the faster tyre, it's pretty terrible. But most teams stuck with the soft, and I mean, it was kind of confusing. The only reason, look, there's not many mediums. The medium is clearly a great tyre. So the teams didn't want to waste them, right? Fair enough. Because they had plenty of softs, and they're never going to use the soft in the race. So, like, I don't imagine anyone's going to use the soft in the race. Like, even if you had the choice, you'd still put the C5 on. So, with that in mind, the teams wanted to probably save as many mediums as they could. But, like, if you're Aston, if you're Mercedes, you're putting, 1 lap of wear and a couple of cool-down laps into a medium tyre? Like, that's got to be worth it, right? To be higher up the grid. Yeah, I know that tyres have always been a problem. I'm just hate watching Pirelli. It is what it is. Max has definitely met a character, says Chris, that can match his fierce style in Piastri. Turn 1 should be interesting. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think Turn 1's going to be very interesting, actually. I have no idea what's going to happen in Turn 1 today. So anyway, that's the Russell kind of pole situation. I did want to quickly run through the Tsunoda crash, because this was a big deal. Again, another incident where someone just walks away. I mean, pretty wild. I'm sure that people are photographing this very close up because you can see a lot of the veins of the floor there in a way that I didn't necessarily expect. And yeah, Yuki in the wall. Look, it was an error on his side. I mean, you can see it from this onboard, right? Like, he just takes way too much curb, bottoms out the car. And he was frustrated, like very frustrated, because he felt like he was pushing too hard, unnecessarily so. And that's definitely true in the first part of qualifying. It's just, I don't know. It just seems to be the way that it is. When you team with Max, it seems to kind of get to you. Now, I still think Yuki has done better in general than the other couple of guys. Like, I think he's shown a bit more promise. But the issue is the results are still basically the same. And in terms of what happens, right? Spinning out, ending up in the wall. Just seems to be a thing that when you're with Max in that car, it's a real struggle to be on the same level as Max. It's impossible, basically. So then you end up probably pushing a bit more, taking a bit too much risk. I think it's what Alex Albon said on that podcast with Jake Humphries. He was like, you're in the car gets sharper and sharper and sharper as they bring the upgrades through, because that's what makes the car quicker, and Max likes it. Then you lose a bit of confidence. You need to take a bit more risk to try and get to where you're trying to be. Then you end up in the wall. It kills your confidence even more. So yeah, it's tough. It is tough. But I think, like, what are they going to do? Kick Yuki out and put Hadjar in? It's like, let's be real here. I think Red Bull have, at least they should have done, learned their lesson by this point, right? Like, is it not clear enough that the issue is not necessarily the second driver? So I think Yuki will get the season, as Marco said he would. But you guys might disagree. They might just kick him out. They're not putting Lawson back in. That's not happening. The Indy 500 guys must look at Yuki's crash and think just another day in the office. Yeah, that Colton Herta crash yesterday was pretty wild, actually. I was watching a bit of Indy qualifying yesterday. There were a lot of big crashes. I mean, obviously there was Yuki's crash. He was frustrated. I will say, as much of a staunch defender of Yuki as Helmut Marko is, he did say this. It's a huge setback for us because it's now 3 races in a row, because obviously over the last few Grand Prix, it's not been great, has it? Like, they've had some moments anyway over the last couple of races. And yeah, as a result, as Marco says, thank God nothing happened to him personally, but it's a huge setback. It's now 3 races in a row. Monte Carlo in particular is not forgivable if you have a slip up there, as we saw last year, of course, with Sergio Perez. So the point that Marco is making is like, look, it's a triple header here. Like, we can't afford these issues. We can't also afford the crash damage as well. which is another very good point. So, yeah, I don't know. At the end of the day, Perez last year, you guys remember the car that Perez and Magnussen, they came together in Monaco? Perez, Magnussen, Monaco. This was certainly a crash. And you can't afford to have that happen again. So, but they repaired the car. This is the image, if you guys remember this one from last year. That is a crash and a half. But again, like, this sums up very, very well, this image, the safety advancements in Formula One over the last several decades. Like, the car is just shattered, but the monocoque where the driver is fine, and it's resting on its own front tires. I thought this is such a funny image. Obviously, it's only funny because everyone's okay, but still a crazy crash. Still a crazy crash. Both of them, I think, were at fault for that to some degree. Yeah, Lindblad to RB, Isaac to Red Bull. To be honest, maybe, and they just kick out Yuki. I don't know. I don't see them kicking out Yuki. Not yet. I think they've got to come to their senses at some point, right? Red Bull, to realize that it's not just a matter of the Max Verstappen effect, but there's also something else going on in the developments that they've made. So that's my perspective anyway. But yeah, that's that one. Then we also had the Colapinto crash. So Colapinto was in the wall, and yeah, first weekends, of course, in Formula One again. Crash was not Checo's fault. I mean, yeah, but it wasn't Checo's fault, but he should have been more sensible, is my opinion. He should have just left space. But it wasn't like his fault. Magnussen stuck a wheel up and he should have yielded, but I think Perez should have been more sensible. That's my memory of it. I might be wrong. But this is Colapinto in the wall, lost it at the first corner, first chicane, Tamburello chicane. There was this tweet. I don't know if you guys saw it. I almost put it in a video because I thought it might be real. But then I was like, I double checked the account and I realized it's not actually real. You guys probably know what I'm talking about here. And that is our best friends over at Formula Fakers. So he tweeted this out. Mick Doohan in a now deleted Instagram story. We've got Mick Doohan, very impressive, and then the crying laughing face emojis. And I saw this because Mick had done that tweet. He'd done that Instagram story about Jack Doohan like getting sacked and Gasly's results and all this. And Mick Doohan did that comment at the time. So sometimes with these motorsport parents, like you can see that, just to clarify, this is not real, right? But it's pretty funny. Now, this caused a load of drama because he tweeted this out and it got 1.5 million views, and then they clarified that his tweet is a joke, parodying his previous comments. This account posts fake news, so people were replying, and then some of the Argentinian fans of Colapinto were going crazy, right? Because some Argentinian fans saw this tweet thinking it was real, and then they decided, obviously, that Mick Doohan was public enemy number one. So all hell broke loose on the timeline yesterday, which is to be expected, to be fair. But yeah, Colapinto's in the wall. Briatore not very happy about it. Jack Doohan maybe a little bit happier about it. At the end of the day, if you're Jack Doohan, are you going to be doing a little bit of hate watching? I mean, yeah, of course. Like, it is what it is. That's just the nature of Formula One. He's not going to be happy about getting replaced. And yeah, look, I kind of called it yesterday. I think the Colapinto's not going to have a great time. I don't think Colapinto's... I don't know. Is Colapinto going to do any better than Doohan over the next 5 races that Doohan did against Gasly? I'm not convinced personally. But maybe. I mean, he's got a bit more F1 experience. It's possible. But it is pretty diabolical, not going to lie. Doohan's still there in the mix. But it is funny because we talked about that comment yesterday where Briatore said, all Colapinto's got to do is be fast, score points, and don't crash. If you do that, you'll be in the car forever. Very first day, he's in the wall. Right? So, look, it's a driver's circuit, Imola. It's a tricky circuit. It's kind of, I don't know, I didn't used to play the Formula 1 games. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong on this. But I got F1 2022 was the first F1 game I played. I got like my steering wheel and the rig set up and everything like that. Not like anything crazy, but just for a bit of fun. And I swear Imola would come up as like an easy track to drive. And maybe obviously on the game it's different to real life. But Imola's a tricky track. It is a tricky track. Like that, especially the chicane before the end of the lap. You take a bit too much curb, you're in the wall at high speed. The first chicane is tough. The curbs are very unforgiving. Anyway, other story before we get into some predictions for qualifying. This whole Bearman thing. Now, I was fuming about this. I'm not going to lie. I actually was fuming. Because I'm like, why are you wasting my time, stewards? What are we doing here? What do we spend? 15, 20 minutes doing absolutely nothing, twiddling our thumbs, to then just Bortoleto raced anyway? Like in the second part of qualifying? I was fuming. So, because Bearman put in a lap that was good enough for Q2. And look, would he have made it to Q3? Probably not. Does it really matter? Is he going to score points anyway? Probably not. Like, okay, fine. But the principle is, I don't know, it's very confusing. And the FIA did clarify, but even today, Haas have kind of wanted to clarify as well. And I think there was even an article that I saw a few minutes ago that said that Haas are still chasing this up with the FIA. Like, they still want answers from the FIA as to how this has happened. They say that the red flag happens at this precise time, and he crossed the line 3.5 seconds later than they pressed the red flag button. Now, obviously, ideally you don't red flag it if there's someone just about to finish a lap. It is what it is. Sometimes if there was someone in sector 1 that there was safety reasons in place, then okay, sure, you want to press it. But it's very, very clear that the red flags did not appear on the lighting screens for Bearman before he crossed the line. When he crossed the line, as far as he was concerned, in his part of the track, the session was green flagged. That's what's confusing, because the FIA are saying, well, actually, no, we did red flag it a few seconds earlier. But then the issue is twofold, because, like, hang on a second, you're telling me that there was a 5-second delay between them pressing the red flag button and actually appearing? Like, that's a major issue. So we've got major issues one way or another. Either they're just wrong, and this is a mess, or the whole thing is a shambles, because if you press the red flag button, the red flags are coming out right now. Like, a 5-second delay to a red flag light being shown is completely, like, that can't happen, right? So, yeah, it's a mess anyway, because Chris Medland was talking about it, saying that the red flag was set by race control only when the light panels start flashing red, but it's clear as day from the replays the red flag was not showing on the start gantry when Bearman crossed the line. It comes on afterwards. So, if the red flag was 3.3 seconds before Bearman crossed the line, then a delay in the panels coming on after it was set was around 5 seconds, which can't happen. It's got to be instantaneous. So Haas is still wanting to clarify this, and they're saying, guys, what are we doing here? Not like they're going to get it to change their minds now, but you know what I'm saying, right? It is, of course, an absolute disaster. But this is the FIA, baby. This is what they do. Why would it take 30 minutes to find out you were right? That's what I'm confused about. Why did it take so long? I didn't really understand why it took so long for them to make a decision, because it's pretty clear cut. Like, if the red flag happened, then he's out, and if the red flag didn't happen, then he's in, right? Reinstate the lap. So, don't know. I thought the only reason why it was taking so long was because it was super, super marginal, and we're talking like hundredths, or tenths or whatever. And if it's, I mean, could you imagine if the red flag comes out a tenth before you get to the line? I mean, you got to think at that point it should be allowed, but I guess you don't want to have grey areas, do you? So, anyway, I can never have much faith in the FIA making the correct decision. You guys know how it is at this point. I don't think anybody really does as well. But qualifying happens. I will just quickly share this because it's, again, another Ferrari disaster. Now, year on year, situation, circumstances slightly different. We've got different tyre compounds, and the C6 was just worse than the C5, so there's a little bit in that. But still, Williams improved a second year on year. McLaren, Red Bull, Red Bull are a bit faster, McLaren a bit faster than last year, Mercedes quite a bit faster, Sauber, Aston, Mercedes, Alpine, etc. But Ferrari were half a tenth or half a second off where they were last year, which is just, pretty brutal. But for McLaren and Red Bull, they weren't that much quicker, but it was quicker enough in order to get the result they looked for. I think for Max, we've got to talk a little bit about this, because we said yesterday, Max made a comment to the press, he was pretty out there with his comment, right? He said, look, staying at this team is not exactly a guarantee. Things may change at some point very soon. He may decide to leave Formula One, do something else. Absolutely possible. But then he says after yesterday's session that, the upgrades are kind of working here. And this is, I think, exciting for the championship, because I'm not going to lie, and we'll get into it, after yesterday, it's difficult to be too convinced that Lando Norris is going to continue to be a credible championship threat. I thought yesterday, given that he's historically been pretty good around here, Imola, I thought yesterday, and I said it in the pre-show, and I was wrong, Lando was going to finally, he's got a week off after Miami, he was going to be able to reset, come in stronger here. But no, driver's track, pressure was on, and Norris bottled it, of course. His last lap was terrible, nowhere near the pace, and he was, again, very self-deprecating in the interviews, which you don't see from, the real best of the best drivers, certainly not when they're confident and in their prime. So therefore, to me, it's okay, well, maybe Lando just isn't going to do it at all this year. And if that's true, then if we want a title challenge, we need Max's car to get a bit better. And Max says, this is the best feeling in the car I've had this year. Car looks a bit different with the updates. In terms of lap time, don't think it makes much difference. But the car feels much better to drive. And that's very, very important, right? If the Red Bull upgrades actually work, if Max is feeling a lot more confident. I thought he was getting pole yesterday, to be honest. I'm kind of surprised that he didn't, but the C6 tyre was giving up on him a little bit. Piastri did a good job keeping it together in the final sector. But yeah, even that, right, to think about that Lando was, he was 2.8 tenths away from Oscar, and Oscar, I don't know how much time Oscar lost in the last corners, but it would have been probably a tenth. I reckon it was probably just under a tenth. Somebody might know. In the end, it doesn't matter because he got pole anyway. If he didn't get pole, I'm sure people would have been looking into it to see what time he did lose with some of that dirty air and, frankly, distractions that he suffered. But these are the results. This was qualifying results yesterday. Tsunoda is going to start today from the pit lane after crashing, and they've rebuilt his car up for the Grand Prix today. So the mechanics, I'm sure, were putting in some serious work. Behrman, as I say, in my opinion, should have been into Q2, but he wasn't because, FIA. Lawson was out in Q3 or Q1 as well, which was not great, because Hadjar made it into Q3 again. So, big similar story. It was close. Lawson wasn't miles off the pace there, but wasn't good enough. Colapinto crashed. Bortoletto was, again, pretty impressive. The Sauber is not a complete tractor. Antonelli was a surprise. For sure, Antonelli was a surprise being out where he was, behind both of the Ferraris. I thought it was going to be looking like a good weekend for Antonelli after what happened in Miami, but no. Once again, Russell shows that, he is still the man to beat at Mercedes. I really did think this was going to be a weekend for Antonelli to kick on, and I think that it's a fascinating part of the grid, actually, just to see what happens between Antonelli, Hamilton, Leclerc, whether Antonelli can fight through those guys. He should be able to. I think Antonelli, the car should be good. The issue is that overtaking here, good luck with that. Good luck with that. I think that's my main concern about the race today, is that maybe not that much is really going to happen. It's an Imola Grand Prix after all. But yeah, Antonelli was a surprise, but still a rookie. It's expected that he's going to have weekends where he's off the pace. But the thing with Antonelli is that even though he was slow, he's still, he's not crashing it, he's not spinning it, he's not crashing it. Colapinto did get a penalty, by the way. He got a one-place penalty for getting released into the pit lane before he was meant to, so that was unfortunate. Probably a bit of both. Well, the team really has to take the blame for that, I think. Oh, 1,111 viewers. What a great number. Hit the like button if you appreciate that number. Let's go. Always a good plug for the like button. But I think Antonelli's just never in the wall. And I know that I say this and he might crash today, right? But even if that happens and it was commentator's curse, I still think that's impressed me, is that he's all the other rookies and stuff, they've had their moments, they've had their crashes, they've had their instances. Even Behrman, right, has also been very impressive, but it's been the same story there. So, yeah, maybe Antonelli's just got the Italian curse. Maybe that's what it is. Italian curse. The curse came down on the Italians. and Ferrari were cooked, and Antonelli was caught in the crossfire. I don't know. But P13, it's going to be difficult to fight from there, but we'll see. Yeah, you're right, Max. Yeah, he spun in Australia. I remember that, yeah. But I mean, remember that overtake that he made on Albon in Australia? Like that was quite the overtake around the outside of that turn 9, turn 10, whatever it is in Australia. The two Ferraris, I think again for the Ferraris, they didn't run the mediums. They could have considered it at the very least. They went out quite early for their lap, and I understand why they went out quite early for the lap, but also because there were red flags and stuff, they wanted to get a lap in early, but it did mean that the best track conditions went to Carlos Sainz. For example, when he set the great lap time. You know what? Let's do a poll here. Where do Ferrari finish? We are going to say podium. 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 You know what? I'm going to keep it in there. Top 5. Top 8. Ooh. Top 10. Outside the points. Don't really know how I'm trying to define this. Am I trying to say both drivers? Am I trying to say one driver? Let's consider this to be the lead driver. The lead driver of the two Ferraris, where do they finish? And I want to know your guys' thoughts. Because, okay, let's look at this grid here. And also we've got to keep in mind that turn 1 could be very interesting. Just historically, we'll get into it in a second, because obviously the countdown is very much on at the moment to the Grand Prix in about 24 minutes time. But you got Hadjar. Look, it just brings me back to when Hamilton was stuck behind Gasly the whole race. You guys remember when Hamilton was stuck behind the AlphaTauri Gasly the whole Grand Prix in 2022? Because like the Mercedes was a tractor at that point of the year, and he was stuck. He was just looking at Gasly's rear the whole race and couldn't overtake him because it was a bit wet. And then even when they activated DRS, it still didn't make any difference, and he got lapped by Max and all this. So yeah, I think it's tough. At the end of the day, both Ferraris got out-qualified by Stroll. So, definitely one of the talking points of all time. Both Williams are right there. P6, P7, awesome job. I think both of the guys did a great job. Alonso, I mean, wow. Like, you got to say, Aston, they've made some progress with their machine, the upgrades they brought. I don't know how much of that was just like they were so much better on the mediums, because without the medium tires they would have been P11, P13 or something. Like they would have been significantly further down. Maybe, I don't know, depends. But Alonso and Aston deserve credit. I mean, I'm hoping that Alonso can score some points today at least, because it's been a bit of a mess for him so far this year, so I'm wishing the best for Alonso. Lando's in P4, Sainz and Albon P6, P7, Stroll is there, Hadjar, Gasly, and then ahead of the Ferraris and Antonelli. I think it's going to get pretty tasty down there. Like, there's going to be a mega DRS train. Let's just put it like that. There's going to be a mega DRS train. It might not be a DRS train. It might be a plus 1.2 train the whole way down the grid. Bortoletto is probably going to have a hard time holding on to the back. He might have his own battle. But it depends what happens at the start a lot. Like, can the Ferraris score points? I think they should. I think they probably... You know what? I'm going to predict that the Ferraris finish P9, P10 for a grand total of 3 points. That's my prediction. But it could be chaos, right? It could be chaos. I know that people were saying yesterday, like, oh, Williams to maybe overtake Ferrari in the championship, and I don't know. I don't believe it. I still don't believe it. They're quite a long way back, but it's not exactly impossible right now. I'm going to predict Ferrari DNF. Yeah, I mean, I guess it can't really get much worse, can it? Like, a DNF would be as bad as it gets, but like, I guess you got to think that it's obviously possible that something terrible happens to Ferrari today. Tends to always do. But yeah, we'll look at it from the perspective of the front of the grid, because I wanted a quick word on Lando Norris before we talk about what's going to happen on the first lap. Because again, Lando yesterday, look, P3 wouldn't have been the end of the world. But P4 is pretty tough. It is pretty tough. Now, look, in Miami, the race pace of the McLaren was so good that it frankly didn't matter. Over Toby, I do think Behrman should have made Q2. Q3, I think, would have been a stretch, but definitely Q2, because that was the, he went out in Q1 at the end with all the drama, but it felt like Q3 because it was so long because of all the crashes and delays in the first part of quali. So Lando says, everyone goes quicker and I always go slower, just not good enough, which is like, look, I don't want to say it again, but when your mentality is this, it's like, how do you say it exactly? It's a, what do they call it? Self-fulfilling prophecy. That's the word I'm looking for. Because if your attitude is, on your final lap of qualifying, that, well, everyone else is going to go quicker and I'm going to go slower, you know what's going to happen? Like, you know what I mean? You can't have this mentality. You cannot pretend to me that you can have this mentality as a top-level driver. Like, when the margins are this tight, it's a terrible attitude. I don't know. It's really frustrating because I know that Lando is really talented, like super talented. And I still believe that if he had the same mental as Piastri, he would be the quicker driver. Like, that is my opinion. You guys may disagree. But last year's 20-4 in qualifying speaks for itself, in my opinion. Like, Norris has the pace. Piastri's improved, sure. But Norris has the pace when he's confident, and maybe when the pressure isn't on as much. I don't know. Like, that's the other thing. Like, Norris was outscoring Piastri last year comfortably, but he wasn't in a title fight until he was, and once he was, he started bottling every single start, right? And now he can't even start on the front row. Yeah, just painful, right? Like, you don't see Piastri talking like this. I know that Hamilton occasionally gets this like self-defeating thing as well, and he says, well, you know, for some reason I just can't seem to improve on the final runs and all this. And okay, that's Hamilton today, who's struggling a bit more with his car. That's not like a prime Hamilton, right? Like, when Hamilton's in his prime winning everything, like, he was fully convinced that he's going to bolt a new set of soft tyres on and stick 3 tenths on everyone's head because he's the best driver on the planet. Like, that's the way the best drivers think, especially when they're in a championship winning season. And I think Hamilton's like attitudes, when he has the car, like, his attitude is different. Whereas when Lando has the car, he seems to get more scared. So it's quite, yeah, and I don't know. It's very interesting. Like, look, when you're talking margins of hundredths of a second, tenths of a second, mentality is a very important thing. And yeah, give it up, Norris, bro. Oscar's about to win 4 straight. And again, look, I rate Oscar. I think there's lots of his elements that are very impressive. But again, an Oscar's lap was good, but it's not like it was spectacular in any sense. Oscar just turned out there and he did the job. The lap was maybe beatable by Max. Of course, he had the traffic in the final corner. It's just Oscar will turn up and deliver. He will deliver 99% of what the car's capable of. You put Charles Leclerc in the car, he's going to maybe deliver 100% of what the car's capable of. But, you know, sometimes that's going to be too much. So, you know, Piastri is just executing an incredible... Like, this is how you win a championship. Like, Oscar's not right in the textbook, because, you know, we've seen other championship winners do this before. But Oscar's following the playbook in terms of how you win a championship. You don't make too many mistakes. You qualify on the front row. P2, P1, it's okay. But P4 behind a Mercedes, now that's a bit of a problem because the Mercedes is better this weekend. They brought some upgrades, but it's not good enough to justify it. Look, it's not the crash in Jeddah where he was starting P10, but still, you can't afford to be in that position, especially just because Imola, as we said earlier, like, it is a driver's track. It's a challenging circuit. Like Acqua Minerale, there's so many corners that require a lot of confidence on entry and to put the power down on the exit that the car's going to stick for you. And if you don't have the confidence, then it's going to give you issues. The weather here is pretty good, only Dan's. The weather here is pretty good. It says it's 18 degrees, partly sunny, according to my calculations. But yeah, right now Oscar's the clear favourites. Of Of course, he's on pole. But, well, we've seen some incidents in previous years at Turn 1 at this track, many of which involving Max Verstappen. I mean, they did post it the other day, the Max Verstappen Championship 2021 battle, when Hamilton and Verstappen had a couple of moments, let's say. Yeah, 64% of you guys thinking someone's going to come top 10 or someone of the Ferrari's going to go top 10. Next question for you guys is going to be this. Who leads out of Turn 1? We're going to say Piastri. We're going to say Verstappen. We're going to say Russell. And we're going to say, I guess, Lando. Or maybe I'll say somebody else, because people are saying that Charles Leclerc is going to lead out of Turn 1. Not so convinced about that. But yeah, this is a question. It's Turn 1. It's Max Verstappen versus Oscar Piastri. Look, Piastri, if he gets a good start, he should be okay. But as we know, it's a very long run down there into Turn 1. Piastri will have to get a good launch and defend the inside. And if he gets a good launch and defends the inside, Max knows. Like, this is the thing as well. Max knows. Stroll. Yeah, good luck with that. Yeah, exactly. 2021, Max went from third to first at the first corner. Max does love a good first corner overtake here. Left side of the track is dirty. An F3 leader lost the lead. Yeah, exactly. That's another key point. They're getting a good launch off the line here from P1 is not ideal. I think there's a very good chance that Max can be at least alongside. The point that I was going to make, though, is that Max knows that he cannot just send it around the outside and know that he's going to be able to get given space. Because in the same way that Hamilton tried to go around the outside of Turn 1 in 2021, and Max gave him no room, and he wasn't entitled to give him room, but, Max just forced him onto the runoff area. Hamilton was bounded over the curbs, the sausage curbs, and Hamilton at that point had to recognise, okay, Max is like that. Fair enough. But Max also knows that. Like, if Max tries to go round the outside of Piastri, you think Piastri's giving him any room? Like, if the rules mean if Piastri has his front axle to the mirrors of Verstappen, Piastri will force Verstappen onto the gravel, because that is the way the rules are currently written. And Max knows that, and Piastri knows that. And I think this is why Piastri is a good candidate for the championship, is because, look, if this was Norris and Verstappen on the front row, I'm taking Max leading out of Turn 1. But I think with Piastri on the front row, I think Max could definitely lead out of Turn 1. But I also think that Max will, if he knows that he needs to yield, he will yield. And I think this is the upshot of racing like Piastri and racing like Max, like hard racing, but just within the rules, maybe grey area, depending on your perspective. But Max can't do anything stupid because he knows that Oscar is going to be hard. But fair, generally, depending on what the rules are. But I think Max knows he's going to be hard. So like, if you're Max, you can't... It's very difficult to get Max to ever yield. In any situation, Max never likes to yield. He'll always go for the move. But in this case, I can see Max yielding into Turn 1. If the move doesn't look on, he's not going to go for something crazy. But that's just my perspective. Russell's in third. That's not bad either. That's really not bad. I think we might see people start on the mediums. I mean, we're going to see, is it going to be a one-stop? I think that's also the take as well. But you've got to think, right, a long run down into Turn 1, dirty side of the track. Russell has a nice little slipstream. We're going 2-3 wide into Turn 1. It's going to get messy. I think Turn 1's definitely going to get messy. Lando, honestly, is well positioned to capitalize theoretically, because I mean, look, Max and like Oscar have had their coming together. Like, it's been pretty tense between the pair of them. People are saying Max is going to crash into Piastri. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised to see like a first lap incident here. I think there's going to be a first lap incident, in my opinion. The question is whether it happens right at the front. And then, yeah, Russell, Lando. Lando, honestly, it might work out pretty well for him because he can start on that side, slipstream Verstappen. Verstappen will come alongside Piastri. George will be there. They'll run wide into turn one. Norris will be third. Norris will be third coming out of the first corner. That's my prediction. But yeah, so you guys are taking... okay, interesting. Let me end the poll. You guys have got 55% Piastri taking it. Russell, 9% out of turn one. And then I guess we'll go for the obvious one, which is who actually wins the Grand Prix. Is it going to be Piastri? Is it going to be Verstappen? Is it going to be... I'm going to put Norris in there. And then is it going to be Stroll? Someone else? Okay, this is how we're doing the polls from now on. So I put Norris in there over Russell just because I think people probably expect that at some point Norris will get past Russell. Or is it going to be Lance Stroll? Stroll go bowling into turn one? Oh, that'd be a talking point. Alonso P5. I think, yeah, if Piastri leads into turn one, out of turn one, I think he is going to command the Grand Prix. Because to be honest, I'm probably expecting it to be a one-stop race. You know, I'm probably expecting a one-stop, which is kind of outrageous because we're talking C4, C5. The issue, one of the issues fundamentally, is that the pit lane in Imola is so long. It's insane. Like, they come into the pits, they pit, and then you expect them to just come out onto the track again. But no, they dawdle down the pit lane for another 10 seconds before they're finally allowed back onto the track. And it just makes it so slow that the teams will literally try everything to make sure they one-stop. So I get what the FIA mean when they're like, we need to increase the pit lane speed limiter so that we can make this a bit better. Because if the pit stops were very fast, quicker, like the pit lanes were smaller, then they would pit more often. But in Imola, like, unfortunately, what's going to happen today, the race is going to start, they're going to battle for one lap, and then immediately they're going to be on the radio saying, all right, guys, let's settle in for the tyre degradation phase and just manage. Yeah, I think interesting, Matt. I mean, you say Ferrari are going to start on the hards. I think a lot of drivers will start on the hards, to be honest, because, I mean, you got to remember the hards are still the C4, which would have been considered an ultra soft last weekend, a couple of weekends ago. So, well, like at Spain, for example, it's that will be considered a very, very soft tyre. I think a lot of teams are going to start on the hards. Some will start on the mediums. I'd like to see George start on the mediums and Piastri and Verstappen to start on hards. I think that'll make a pretty interesting first few laps. Feel like we're about to witness an Alonso podium. I mean, could you imagine, right? We get a Russell Verstappen pile up turn one. Russell and Norris take each other out as well. And then we get an Alonso versus Sainz versus Albon battle for the dub. And Tsunoda flying through the field with Antonelli. I don't think Tsunoda's going to come flying through the field, to be honest. He's starting from turn one in a completely rebuilt car. Stroll watching the big screens into turn one. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know what Antonelli can do. Like, as I say, my fear is just that everyone has to go into tyre deg mode and someone goes for like an early pit stop to try and do an undercut and then just tries to hold onto those hards for dear life. It's interesting, right? Like, if you're Antonelli, what do? Do you put on the hards and go long? Or do you put on the mediums, try and jump the Ferraris and then go early and then do a long stint on the hards? I mean, it's interesting. I don't think the chances of rain are very likely right now compared to what we had last time out. So, yeah, look, we got Lawson P3. It's like that meme, isn't it? It's like P3, easy P3, easy P3. P16! That's the Lawson today. All my homeboys hate Lando. He's going to crash turn one. Ronathan. Damn, Ronathan actually is the biggest Lando hater. I don't think he's going to crash turn one, but I do think that he's probably not going to win the Grand Prix. But it's a big weekend for the championship, right? Like, honestly, yesterday during qualifying, I was thinking Max is going to take pole here. And it's once again, the championship stays really alive, despite the fact that Max doesn't really have the car. Chances Norris starts in his box. I mean, honestly, Max is very close last time out. Max may really push the limits here, because I think that's what's so fascinating about turn one, is that everyone knows very clearly that this is massively important for the race, whoever leads out of the first chicane. You know, it doesn't... I'm not saying it's Monaco, but this year, it's pretty much, like, it's going to be tough to pass around here. They've not made the DRS zone any longer. Tyre deg may be higher than normal, but the teams are going to... The drivers are just going to be going super management mode on the tyres, unfortunately. I can't really see any other outcome. Alonso for the podium, hard then mediums. Pole for Will Colapinto crash. All right, you know what? Just for you. Just for you. Will Colapinto crash. Crash. Again. Yes, no. Feel a bit bad. And we've got one vote for yes immediately. Russell to bin it. Russell to bin it? Oh, it'd be a tough weekend for Russell to bin it. I mean, I think it's going to be a classic Russell does nothing and gets P3. C4 will be mega. Yeah, I agree. The hard tyre is going to be mega. Like, it's going to be quick and it's going to not degrade. So it's a classic. Can it be Spain 2024? I love Spain. What a track, in my opinion. Red Bull pit stop blunder. I'm predicting a surprisingly good Ferrari. I think the Ferrari is actually going to be better. Like, I genuinely do. My problem with it is that they're going to be stuck in a train. So they're not going to be able to do anything. And they're going to have Antonelli pressuring them. So... my bad, Colapinto. I was going to throw someone else in as well, but look, if the chat wants to go hate watch mode, then chat can go hate watch mode. It is what it is. Look at you guys go, man. I'm going to end the poll there nice and early. But look at him. Look at you guys go. 72% for yes. We'll see. I don't think Colapinto is going to crash. I'm going to say no. But I think there will be a crash. There will certainly be some moments today. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. The intro is currently rolling to get this Grand Prix underway. No Crofty in Imola. Got this Harry Benjamin fella instead. I think he used to be with BBC 5 Live. But it's been a pleasure last couple of days. I will just say, as we kind of close this out for the show, thanks all for joining me as always. It's been an absolute pleasure to spend this pre-race time with you, getting excited for what's going to be a great turn one. And after that, we'll see if it's interesting. Next weekend, I'm in Dallas for a Call of Duty event, stuff I cover on my other channels. And it's Monaco Grand Prix next weekend. I don't know if I'll be able to do the pre-shows, just timing related. I'll still be obviously recapping everything, but my days are going to be crazy next weekend, and the pre-shows for the Monaco stuff are probably not going to happen at the best times. We'll see. I might be able to get something done, maybe one of the days. But yes, I will be joining you shortly. Take care, everyone. Enjoy the race, and I'll see you for the video later on today. And...